Josh, good morning, buddy.
Yeah, so I've got some feedback for you.
Okay.
This has got to stay between us because this is supposed to be private. And I know no one would ever repeat what they hear here. So last night I was down in Mobile. I was speaking to a touchdown club down there. And I've got to tell you that it's an Alabama event. It's a Red Elephant Club event. So the details of the event are classified, but I will tell you that one of the main topics of conversation was Texas A&M.
Huh?
When you do the Q&A, like one of the main topics of conversation was Texas A&M. So I anecdotally wanted to come here this morning, sort of a breakfast platter of compliments for the fine folks there and say that you've got people's attention. So any of the talk about flying under the radar, I think we're gonna have to erase that, David, before too much longer, because I don't think we're under the radar here so much anymore.
Yeah, not under the radar, but at times, and I think this is okay, by the way, I don't care. Like, it's not a beauty pageant. Underappreciated. We have Aggies today on our YouTube page saying, yeah, Marcel's middle tier SEC. And I mean, maybe, but if middle to two is not, if it's, it's kind of like the SEC, right? When you look at the standings, 1 through 10, you can kind of make an argument, even if you believe it or not, of why Texas could, or why LSU could, or why Alabama could, or why Georgia could, right? Like, maybe that's the case, but I feel like Marcel throwing for 250, running for 37 and a touchdown, and yeah, he had a pick. I think he's playing at a pretty high level, Josh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what tier he's in the middle of. Middle of the top tier, it would probably be. So that would be fair, whatever the top tier is. The thing that happens in football a lot, this is not just an A&M thing, is you watch all of your team and you mainly remember highlights of other teams. So you see Ty Simpson's best. You see Gunnar Stockton's best. Typically, a normal fan's not watching all of their team and then everyone else in totality. If you are, good, but most people aren't. So you end up comparing your guys' best, good, and bad against the other guy's best. And it can sometimes fool you into actually thinking your guy's lower, a few rungs down the ladder than he is. I think Marcel's better than middle tier. I would also say this. Let's go back to the Florida game. Numbers are good. You just read off the numbers. Not great, but good. Are there not still throws there that could be made? Is there not still more meat on the bone? Now, we're saying that in a 31-17? Wasn't that the final? A 31-17 win. A win that I will agree with you using those adjectives for the A&M Florida game absolutely got overlooked. Absolutely was underappreciated because people just look at Florida's record and they don't understand. That was kind of a last gasp effort from Florida. That was, all in, and they just beat Texas and they're coming into your building. Kind of handled them and took over the second half, and Reed was a lot to do with that. But the third component of that, just to remember in how complimentary this game is supposed to be, is like you and I have talked about every week since the Auburn game, they have more than one or two ways to win. So if he doesn't light the world on fire one week and he's still a 31-17 winner, that's what he is. He's a winner. They're a winner. You're a winner. The team's a winner. So okay, if you got the fifth best quarterback in the league, but you have the confetti raining down on you in Atlanta, what did you accomplish? Everything you set out to.
Well, now they're going to have to do it without Le'Veon Moss, and A&M went down that path last year. And, offensively it wasn't kind. But then I remind myself, and I'm kind of arguing with myself here, Josh, but I remind myself that A&M didn't lose games because of the offense last year at the end. The Texas game they lost because offensively, I get that. But it was their defense not having the ability to stop teams at the end of games. So I look at the way this defense plays this year and how they've controlled fourth quarters and how they can stop the run, how they are really good on the best at third down, stopping a third down. And I'm like, you know what? They had Amari and EJ last year in their backfield, and they did quite well offensively. Their defense struggled. This year, they've got those guys, and they got Jamarian Morrow, and they got Reuben Owens. Oh, no, by the way, this defense is really good. So I argued with myself to give you a platform to argue back.
Well, I don't have that much pushback on it. I would say that what did we talk about when we came into the season with them at the tailback position? We didn't talk about one name very intentionally because we thought they had really good depth in that room. No one, at least I didn't, tout A&M's ability to run the ball because of one guy. That is the case sometimes in college football. They were blessed enough to not have that be the case there. So a guy goes down, it's not the end of the world, but you're just going right back, I guess, up the funnel to what we've been talking about for several weeks, which is about the complementary nature of the team. Okay, the best compliment that I could give them right now is how many different ways they've won. You project that forward. It's just the middle of October right now. I mean, more injury probably will happen. You cross your fingers it doesn't, but it's a violent sport. So you're asking yourself, are we one of those teams that makes ourselves vulnerable to one injury derailing everything? And I think their answer is no. Obviously, quarterback's different entirely than any other position on the field, but I think their answer is no. So cross your fingers for health. You know it's probably not going to play out 100% like you want it to. It didn't with Le'Veon. So, I mean, think about another world you could be in. All right, go back to July. Go back to media days. Let's pretend Le'Veon Moss comes with A&M to media days, and he's the face of the offense, and everything's riding on him. And then you fast forward to the Florida game, and he goes down. And you got that scene of him walking up the tunnel. Think about how gutted you would have been. Like, think about, that's the season. It's over. It's done. Some teams out there would be like that. There are certain players on certain teams that their fate disproportionately hinges on. That's not A&M. That's actually a very good thing.
But now they got to go on the road. Arkansas, LSU, bye week, Mizzou. That's a tough stretch with or without Le'Veon. Just give me your thoughts on this team going on the road where they've already done it against Notre Dame. Now they got to do it against SEC teams.
So the Notre Dame win was such a mental hurdle to clear for many reasons, most of which we've talked about. But now that you're going back on the road, the other one you can talk about is there's so much to be said for having done something. If you're a field goal kicker and you miss to end a game last week, best thing you can do is hit a 44-yarder in the first quarter the next week because you've done it. The last thing wasn't a bad thing. So A&M looks in their rearview mirror last time they went on the road, one of the biggest wins in program history. Why would I be scared of going to Arkansas? Why would I not look forward to opportunities? And also, think about what we're trying to sell ourselves here. What we're trying to sell ourselves is this is a playoff caliber team, SEC championship caliber team, maybe a national championship caliber team. Well, if that's the case, you don't shy away from anything. You actually have opportunities because then you go on the road and instead of wilting, you get to try to reinforce the belief you already have about yourself. And you get to try and right a lot of past wrongs. And like if I were an A&M fan, I'd have the added motivation of the entire rest of the college football world thinking I can't do something because I haven't done something. And you don't get to go around that merry-go-round but once. Like if Mike Elko's there 10 years, like Kirby's been at Georgia, a ton of success will come. And in time, no one will doubt you anymore, and everyone will expect you to win if things go right. Well, A&M's not there yet. This is the real fun part. The part about totally flipping narratives and creating a new identity for a team, but also a new identity for a program. Like I hope A&M folks realize you're right in the middle of that right now. You're right in the middle of a special, sort of blooming, sort of debuting of a new way of doing things and a new way of the outside world thinking about A&M football. And I wouldn't take that for granted because that's the kind of stuff you get several years down the road into maybe even a successful run, and you still look back on and say, hey, I still love where we are now, but boy, that 2025, 2026, those seasons, those were so special. Those were so fun.
Josh, I keep getting text messages from friends of mine. Hey, man, should I be worried about Elko leaving for Penn State? And I'm like, I'm not worried. Like, look, I understand every media entity is going to put out candidates. And when you think about candidates, you're going to throw out Elko's name. You're going to throw out Drink's name, Clark Lee. You're going to start throwing out names. That's what media. But if this team is in the middle of a playoff run, they're not going to get Coach Elko. And if the season dismantles, they're not going to get Elko because he's not going to be as attractive as a candidate. And also, I think he's got everything he wants here. So I'm not going to worry about anything that I don't need to worry about.
It would be a 10 out of 10 on the shot meter to me if he entertained that job. So I don't really have much else to say on that. I've seen that stuff circulating, but then again, I heard all kinds of nonsense yesterday. That was just part of it. I will say this, though, like they're dealing with this at Nebraska right now. Now, A&M's a different strata than Nebraska. Nebraska actually may have something to worry about or not. I don't know. But at Nebraska, they're worried about whether they're going to lose Matt Rule or not. And I get it, but also you need to look in the mirror and ask, what's the alternative? Would you rather him not be in demand? Would you rather nobody want to touch your head coach? It probably means you're about to hire a new head coach voluntarily anyway. So at A&M, you'd say the same thing. You just have the added bonus at A&M of saying he's already got a better job than the one that's open. So what are we really talking about here? Unless he played there, unless there's some really, really special emotional attachment, and even then, if I was a former Penn Stater and I had the A&M job, I have what Mike Elko has. I love my alma mater. It's not his alma mater, but I'm saying if it was my alma mater even open, I'd assist in their search. I'd wish them well. I'd help them out every way I could. I'm not leaving College Station, Texas right now. I've got one of the best jobs in the country.
Talking to Josh Pate here on TexAgs Live. Josh, do you think conference commissioners listen? Like Commissioner Sankey, you think he listens to what you have to say, what talking heads have to say, what's out there? Because your segment, I think it was yesterday or the day before on SEC officiating was just awesome. And I feel like sometimes when there's a movement, like when you hear all the chatter, you're like, you know what? We got to figure something out. Do you think they're going to figure something out with SEC officiating?
I don't know. I've never been given any reason to think they will. This is not the first disastrous Saturday. It's just the latest one that we've had. And I will also say this, it's not to pile on the SEC. I mean, they've got a mess on their hands in the Big 12. I mean, there's some G5 conferences that you would have to label it just outright almost corruption to properly describe how the behind the scenes mechanisms work. I don't even, David, I don't mean like this official's on the take. That's why he threw the flag. Not that. I'm talking about the typical BS you deal with. If you're watching right now and you work in corporate America and you see how ridiculous decisions are made and how they're made, officiating in college football is the same way. Deciding who gets put on a field is the same way. The inconsistency and incongruency in what's enforced over on this conference's side versus that conference's side. The little fiefdoms that are set up because you've got heads of officiating, and that's the most authority that they'll ever have in their lives, and they don't want to give that up, and they want to exercise that power. You know, it's like a small-town sheriff, except that they're running officiating apparati, plural of apparatus, in major conferences. That's the mess of it all. So, you know, my problem's never been with bad calls. As long as humans are involved, you're going to have bad calls. My problem's always been with a lack of transparency and this ridiculous curtain they hide behind of saying, well, these guys don't make the kind of money coaches do, or, well, these guys aren't full-time referees. We can't expose them to public scrutiny. Well, the last I checked the nature of those media rights deals, they had billions with a B on the end of it. So as long as that's the case, and as long as we spend the money we spend on this sport, you're telling me we can't full-time employ officials and make them accountable? And at the very least, I mean, Auburn's athletic director is under fire for going after the white hat as they're walking off the field at halftime, and he's yelling at him. And I looked at it initially and I said, wow, that's a bad look for John Cohen. But then I thought about it and I said, I'd probably be the same way. When else am I going to get an answer from those people? When else are they going to have to give me an explanation for what's happened? We don't even get so much as a pool report or something like that from officials. They just, you as a head coach, you got to go answer when you screw up. Even the players have to answer to the media when they screw up. And the one group of people responsible for enforcing the rules and controlling the game, they just get to skate on out of there with a police escort and you never hear from them again. And maybe, if you're lucky, the league sends you a letter 48 hours later saying, yeah, we messed up. We may have cost you a game. We're not going to give you a win. We're not even going to pay a fine to you like we would make you pay to us. We're just going to kind of send you an email and move on, and no one can do anything about it because we don't answer to anyone.
Talking to Josh Pate. Josh, do you think in July, when you were thinking about the ceilings for these teams, that you would have thought at the midway point you'd still be saying LSU's got a higher ceiling this year than Georgia? Because I believe that's how you phrased it. Like right now, it feels like LSU has a higher ceiling than Georgia.
I didn't think that in the preseason. I may still be wrong about that. You know, what I'm trying to figure out is, am I ever going to get more out of Garrett Nussmeier than I'm getting right now? And if he's physically limited the whole season, that statement is incorrect. So what I'm doing, and I'm doing it live on air when I'm doing the show, so sometimes gets put on a quote graphic and I look like I'm saying something I'm not trying to say. What I'm trying to say with LSU is, or with Georgia rather, is I kind of think we've got what we've got with them. With LSU, that may also be the case, but with LSU, at least I have this voice in the back of my head that keeps saying, well, wait till they get Aaron Anderson back. Wait till Garrett Nussmeier's fully healthy. Maybe they got to go through another bye week for that to happen. Just if. If that doesn't happen, yeah, LSU's a very limited team too, and Georgia probably does have a higher ceiling. I just wonder about that. I think that LSU situation is very much in the balance right now. They've got a game at Vanderbilt. I'm actually going to get right down the road. I'm going to go Saturday. They're here in Nashville to play Vandy. They are 2.5-point dogs to Vanderbilt. So odds makers perspective, LSU is very vulnerable. Combined with Vandy's pretty good. David, if they lose that game, that's a second conference loss, and they've still got Bama, Oklahoma. They still got a number of big games to play. They play A&M, right?
Yep, the week after.
Yes, they've still got 3 of them that you would certainly classify them as being a dog in. I would suspect. So yeah, that whole situation there at LSU is really interesting to watch.
Last thing for you, Notre Dame USC. This is a game that, well, both programs obviously need it, but Notre Dame, like you look at the rest of their schedule, like if they want some quality wins, this USC game, especially after what they did to Michigan, becomes that quality win. How do you see this weekend playing out?
I think so. We're going to pick the game tonight. I think I lean Notre Dame in the game, although that's not certain. But I think this is the season for Notre Dame. We're mid-October. You always knew this was going to be the situation with Notre Dame. You always knew that their 3 best games were going to be first half of the season, maybe 4 if Boise was good. We don't know how good Boise is, but yeah, they could be out of it. And think about this: USC, what they just did in Michigan, everyone wanted to call that a statement win. I didn't call it that. I called it a really good win. The statement is not made at home when you're a favorite, which they were. The statement is made when you go on the road as an underdog, like A&M did in the same building, ironically. That's where you make a statement. A statement is letting me know something has changed. I won't know something's changed with USC football until they go on the road and take care of business against someone that's physically been superior to them, a team that looks to be surging. They look to be surging in Notre Dame. So that's just another game on this landscape Saturday. We got another loaded landscape this Saturday.
Josh, great stuff, brother. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, David.